So today is August the 12th, 2023, and I'm here with Atia to talk about the 12-week life transformational program that she recently completed. So, Atia, to start with, why don't you talk a little bit about your interest in personal growth, spiritual growth prior to meeting me, and some of the things you've done, and just your desire to know the truth about everything.
Okay. So yeah, growing up, which I actually don't know why my dad has been so into this, but yeah, growing up, my dad has always kind of had like talks with us um, that would last for hours, and I'd be like, "What the heck is he talking about?" But he was always talking about just things that had in general to do with personal growth, but at the time it was just kind of going over my head. But I guess subconsciously it was affecting me to a certain point because just like when I got into school, like people would be like, why do you decide not to do certain things, or why are you just fine with saying no to this? Like, don't you care about XYZ? And I'd be like, no, yeah, I really don't care too much about that kind of stuff. So just growing up, kind of been like different mindset from everyone else. But like recently, I guess not recently, but I got married, which I guess we may or may not get more into that later. But and I started to notice that at the time when me and my husband got married, I guess just with at the point I was in my life, being in school, not really having a job for real, like I would just study, come home, do whatever. Uh, we were having fun at the time, but then as I got a job, and then when I got a job, I was like, I'll be making more money than I've made before. Like, how do I need to use this money? And I want to say that's really what jump started, like me deep diving more into um, financial growth at first, and then that kind of ends up going into personal growth. Because a lot of people would say, like, if your mindset overall isn't right, then no matter what tips and tricks you know for money, your money will kind of always be all over the place. Uh, and so, yeah, we got kind of past that, paid off student loans. That was another big thing I was trying to do. And then once we paid off the student loans, it's like I kind of noticed me and my husband Chris weren't on the same page. Because up until that point, we had just kind of been goofing off, and here and there, I kind of noticed that he wasn't quite the same mindset as me, but I wasn't really focused on anything for real, so it really didn't click. But once we paid off the student loans, which was a big, huge common goal that we were both working towards, I was just like, okay, well, yeah, now what? Now I want to continue building, for long-term growth for family. So it was like it went from an immediate goal that we could physically see being knocked down to kind of just like an out there kind of goal. When you speak to most people about that kind of thing, because you think legacy is like, well, you can't really see that number ticking down or up in a few minutes or in a few days or in a few weeks. So it's really a long-term goal, which I didn't have an issue with. But then Chris was kind of just like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. And so that's when I started to notice, okay, maybe we're not really on the same page with stuff. And then as we start talking more about kids, and I'm the kind of person where it's like, okay, kids are not just some you just have. Well, I don't think there's something that you just have and then you just I know a lot of people have them on accident. Not too many people plan for them, but I've been around so many people with unplanned kids, and I'm just like, this could be a real huge mess if you don't, look more into this. So I'm the kind of person that always like, okay, let me at least see what we're trying to get into, what it takes to raise a kid, all that kind of stuff. Which once you start deep diving into kids, you realize, dang, if I've got stuff to deal with, then my kids are gonna have the same issues that I had to deal with. And but Chris was just kind of like, no, when we have them, we have them. So that's where I was really like, okay, I gotta change Chris before we have kids. I gotta change Chris before we have kids. Chris gotta get this straight. So then my brain just got hyper focused on, I've got to get him on track like me. I gotta get him like me, like me. Like, why won't he change? Why won't he change? And surprise, surprise, he was not changing. I was super frustrated, and I was like, well, what the heck are we gonna do? And then I thought, okay, well, let's get a house because we've been living with my mom, and he's had no responsibility there because it's not his house, which that did help some because yeah, since my dad wasn't here in our new house, Chris did have to start pick up more responsibilities. But even then, it was me divvying out the responsibility and him just kind of begrudgingly following it. So it was like, okay, what's going on here? Like, why won't he change? Why won't he change? And then That's my dad, because they say not to talk to people about your marital issues, especially family, like your parents. But I was just like, let me give this to my dad in as general terms as possible. So I told him somewhat, and he was like, he's a big matrix person. He said essentially, you're trying to bend the spoon when there is no spoon. Like you're trying to bend Chris and change Chris when Chris is not the problem. Uh, it's you. You're the problem. You can't change people. You can't change people. You can only work on yourself. And I was like, I want to say, Daddy, Chris, clearly he's got stuff to work on. But then I'm also a Christian, and in the Bible, it also talks a lot about instead of looking at the splintering the other person's out, get the plank out of your own. And so I started deep diving more into the Bible, and I just really started getting, okay, I got a lot of crap I need to work on, especially my anger, because growing up, people just always commenting on my anger, you're angry, you're angry. And I just thought, okay, yeah, I guess this is me. Who cares? But then at my job at the VA, which is where I met Dunn, I had a lot of veterans who I've never met before also saying, "You're so nice. You must be so angry at home to your husband." I was like, where is this coming from? I had like 3 or 4 people tell me that. And I was like, okay, clearly I really need to work on my anger. So that was about last year, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I came to the VA. People started telling me that, but it was in the past year, specifically like December of 2022, where I really was like, okay, I'm supposed to start journaling. I'm supposed to start like really getting into this because I've been trying my way and it's not working. And I really don't know what else to do. And so I was doing that for about 5, 6 months until I met Dunn, and he was just kind of like, okay, I see you've been kind of doing some stuff. Now I'm gonna take you to the next level. And so that's kind of where we picked up when I met Dunn, is that I was already journaling, already reading a lot of books, trying to do a lot of self-introspection, doing quiet times. But yeah, when I met Dunn, he like amplified times 1 million.
Yeah. Now talk a little bit about how we met and really the conversation that led to even finding out about what I did and what motivated
Yeah.
you to do it.
Yeah, so during my time at the VA, I've had a lot of veterans, like I mentioned, the one saying that I was angry. I had one veteran comment on my quiet times with God. He was like, "You're spending all this time with your friends, gossiping about crap, but then you won't even take time to like self-reflect and read your Bible." And I was like, "Oh shoot." Okay, so then like a month or so after that, Dunn came in, and I have my own patients, but sometimes the technicians kind of ask for help. I work in the sleep clinic at the VA, helping with CPAP machines and all that stuff. And so one of the techs was like, "Hey, I've got this veteran. He's had like a couple sleep studies, but he wants to try these pills for his sleep apnea." And I was like, pills? What the heck is this? And so, because if you look up any research, nothing says nothing about pills. It's all about the big, huge, blowy CPAP machine or like a mouthpiece, or they got a couple other gizmos, but pills I'd never heard of. So I was like, yeah, I'll give him a call because I know none of the other physicians are going to give him any time of day on this. And I'm pretty open to hearing what other people got to say because, yeah, I've never heard of pills. And so I called them.
Let me add one thing here. So
Mhm.
this is what I call a divine appointment. I had
Yeah,
been to the sleep clinic 2 or 3 times, and
yeah, since
actually,
like 2019.
I got a CPAP machine about 3 years ago. I never
Mhm.
used it, and then I got an oral device, and I used that
Mhm.
for a while, and then I started having problems. So I'm one that I'm not. To me, drugs and surgery is a last resort. I'm not opposed to it, but I want to do things as natural as possible. So I had done a little research about these natural supplements that are supposed to deal with the cause of sleep apnea. And so
Mhm.
I think I had just gotten them. Can't remember if I had used them yet, but I like to get objective measures when I can, beyond what I just feel. So I had called the VA or contacted the VA I wanted to do a home sleep study after taking these supplements for just a couple of nights. And like Atia says, normally they wouldn't even be open to that. So the fact that she and I even met was a miracle, I would say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been to the VA, a lot of different departments over the years for a lot of different things. I have never had one person ask me about what I do. So first of all, it was a divine appointment, and you go from there about, so the fact that we even met was not supposed to happen, and
Yeah.
talk about how we even got into a conversation about what I did.
Yeah. So yeah, I called him at first to see if I could over because it was gonna be an overbook because we're usually pre-booked out. So I called him and I was like, "So tell me about these pills," and he was like, "Yeah." Basically, what he said all that, and I was like, "But how do you think taking a pill is gonna open your airway?" He was like, I was very skeptical, but he was like, "You know what? I really don't know, but I'm very curious to see what happens." And I was like, "You know what? Why not? Why not get the test done?" So,
But
I was
but I'll say one thing. I know when I was in your office, the first thing you told me was, "That's not going to work." And then,
yeah.
but you opened up to the possibility. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because it was something I never heard before. But yeah, like I said, throughout all my life, like my dad is just always like we have conversations like that. So it didn't take much for him to say, "You know what, can we just give it a try?" And I was like, "You know what, I don't get too many patients who look into their own health. So yeah, I'll help you out." So yeah, so then I saw him in clinic officially like the next week, and I saw how he looked and how he was speaking, because he was speaking, very cognitively intact, having tell me about the stuff that he was looking into. And I was like, and I looked at his age in the chart, I said, 80 years old. Well, maybe were you 80?
78.
78, yeah. 78 years old. And I was like, I thought you were like mid 50s or like early 60s or something. Because most of my 80-year-old patients or close to 80 are like, I don't want to say they're not talking and having a conversation and like Don was. So I was like, what the heck do you do? Like, what kind of lifestyle are you having? Like, how are you like this? And so that's really what got me wondering. I usually ask my patients what they do, but I really was like, no, like, what do you do? Like, how are you eating? Like, what kind of lifestyle do you have? So that's what he got into. I was the real estate person, and then I was called into being a life coach. And so he started telling me about his program. And I was like, and then he started talking about matrix reprogramming. And I was like, oh, my dad always talks about the matrix. And so it was very interesting because you don't meet very many people talking about the stuff that Don was talking about. Like, you control your life, you can't control anyone else. Your perception is what dictates how you live. Just a lot of stuff like that, and especially like I said, for someone in their 80s or like late 70s. I was like, I don't get too many veterans who talk like, or people in general who talk like this. And so he was like, well, I have my program. Here's my card, my website, everything is on there. If you got questions, give me a call. And so I took it and I was like, and then he got his sleep study and all that stuff, which, fun fact, his sleep study did come back objectively way better with the pills.
50,
Very surprised.
50%.
Yeah, like it was a significant reduction. So, but yeah, other than, so then at that point, I told my mom and dad and sister about, cause I always tell them a lot of stuff, especially my interactions with veterans, and they were like, "So are you gonna do that? Because it's just a random old guy you met at the VA, and where's his office at?" I'm like, "Well, is that his house?" He was like, "He ain't even got no office. Like, what's going on with this?" Then he's your patient, which that did kind of flash in my mind as that patient provider thing. But I was like, at that point, I was kind of realizing that the professions and stuff that we're put into are not really our identities. It's just a means for us to meet the people that we need to meet. So I was like, you know what? Let me really think. So this took like a couple, I think maybe 2-3 weeks before I told you I would do the program. I think I met you because, yeah, you offered me a consultation for free. We met. I asked you a few more questions. And then after that, I think we met officially for the first session like 4 weeks later. But throughout that time, I was like looking on your website, watching testimonials, looking because you had sent me some information on the techniques that you use. So I was looking into that kind of stuff, and I was like, do I want to do this? He is my patient, but at the VA, patients are like patients in other clinics. Like, usually people see people at the sleep clinic, and then it's like years before you see them again, if you ever do. So I kind of got over that because I was like, too, if I lose my job, that's fine. There's always something else out there for me to do. And it's not like we're doing anything bad. And I was like, would I regret not doing this? And I was like, I probably would, because the way he made it sound is like I could really see some changes in my life. And I was like, okay, the worst thing that would happen, because my dad is always like, what's the worst thing that would happen? I was like, the worst that happens, I pay the money, go through it, and I'm like, yeah, this was a waste. it's fine because you make money back, it's always it's gonna come back. So I was like, okay. And the worst thing that would happen if I don't is I could have missed out on a lot of growth. And I was like, yeah, I really need as much growth as I can get. So I said, done, I'll do it.
Well,
And
and
so,
let me mention one thing about that, because on the beginning, I think I was, told you some things that you could probably expect to experience, and that it would really, in 12 weeks, that it would really change your life in ways you couldn't imagine. And tell me what you thought when I said that.
I thought, I don't know about life changer. Maybe he'll give you some new tips and tricks I've never heard of before. But the biggest thing he kept saying though, which I appreciated, was just have the experience. Like just give it 100%. Just have the experience, because if you come in at halfway, you're not gonna get anything out of it. You can only get as much. And that was the biggest thing too, is he mentioned, I'm here as the accountability person and I'm giving you materials, but if you don't do the work, you're not gonna get your money's worth out of this. And so I was like, well, I'm ready to freaking do the work because I need something to change. And so yeah, at first I was like, okay, maybe not life changing, but maybe just help in some parts. But
So in other words, you felt initially that I was kind of overstating what you were going
yeah.
to get, and I was trying to sell you something.
Yeah, that is what my sister, because my sister is a salesperson, and she was like, he's just trying to sell you. Of course, he's gonna say that it's his program, and I'm like, but what if it's true? Then he's just stating facts at that point. So, yeah,
Okay, now before we get into some more details, you pay $6,000 for this program, and you tell me how much it was worth to you, just
uh,
roughly.
significantly more than 6,000.
Yeah.
Like the 6,000 is not missed at all. And at one point, I told Don this about halfway through the program. I was like, Don, it was one week I was having so many like revelations and like making so many epiphanies, and I thought, I really got to do something for Don. I got to pay him for this. And I was like, oh wait, I already paid him
Yeah.
all the money. Like, yeah, like the money it is nothing. Like it is nothing compared to what you get out of the program. Like
Yeah.
really,
And I've
I
had,
mean,
I've, yeah.
easily, I would shoot, if I had paid 20,000, I would still be like, crowd, shoot 30, 40, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Because
And like I told you to you, this guy, Jack Canfield, who's a real famous guy, he does this, he has a group program that he does 4 times a year. He does it for 24 people for 4 days, and he charges each person $15,000 plus their travel and lodging and all that.
yeah,
Because
and I had heard and I considered some programs like that. And so that's why when you said 6, I was like, I mean, I don't hear anything like there was one I was looking at for couples, and that was like 6,000 for 3 days in a
yeah,
group
that's
with
what I'm saying. So, because people that have a brand or they're famous or whatever, they can kind of trade on that. It's kind of like designer clothes, people that pay $200 or $300 for a shirt or so. So yeah, and I've had, I've done this with over 100 clients, and I'd say not 100%, but maybe 80 to 90% have told me halfway through the program that they've already gotten more than their money's worth. So yeah, and it's amazing how many people, get stuck on the money. Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
say, the
I mean,
money.
yeah, 6,000. That's a nice trip.
Yeah, well, that's what. But and there again, a lot of people will spend $6,000 on a week-long vacation
Yeah,
somewhere, and they
yeah.
come back and nothing.
It's the same.
And
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even think about that, Don. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, because we're taking a trip to Japan, and it's about 6,000 for two
yeah,
weeks. And I'm gonna be the same per well, I will have been to Japan, but yeah, I won't have what I have now. So yeah,
no,
that's a really
that's
yeah,
my
I didn't
point.
think
You spend 20 or 30,000 on a car. You spend all this money on stuff, but it
mm-hmm,
doesn't change who you are. And when
mm-hmm,
you change, as you've learned, and before you even met me, when you change who you are, that changes everything.
mm-hmm.
Everything. So let's talk a little bit about, maybe we can kind of go week by week, as best you can remember. Uh, you know, so we start the program. So start sharing some of your experiences week by week, some of the things you were working on, some of the challenges you had, and the changes that happened. And if you were surprised or amazed at how some things changed. pretty quickly.
Yeah. So of course, one of the first things you did was give me the 5 books that you have for me to read. So I started reading those. And even just with those books, I was like, what the heck? The first one, Loving What Is. I've recommended that book to so many to so many people so far. But yeah, the Loving What Is and the Dark Side of Light Chasers, those are 2 books that I'm just like, these really shake things up.
And those are 2 books that every client get. And then
Yeah.
I do the other 3 sort of custom, to what they're working on.
Yeah. That's what you said. Yeah. So, and just reading those books, like I was getting a lot from just the thought process of uh, it's your thoughts that control how you feel. And so if you're thinking a lot, just change the thought, change how you feel. So it was a lot of me writing down, oh, Chris shouldn't have did this, or my sister shouldn't have did that. And then me saying, okay, but how does that make me feel? Pissed off, angry, and then flipping it around and saying, okay, but if I change it to, well, maybe I should have did this, or maybe they shouldn't have done that. Maybe if I didn't have this thought, I would have felt calmer. I would have felt more at ease. And so just a lot of that have helped me to realize, okay, it is a lot of what I'm thinking that's triggering a lot of these negative emotions, these feelings of anxiety, worry that I was having. And so that was a big, huge mindset shift that was going on the first couple of weeks while I was reading that book. He had me start doing the tapping on previous emotions that caused a lot of anger in the past. And for me personally, I didn't get too much from that, I guess, because for the most part, those were because we have to rank things on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being like, I'm super into the emotion now, and 0 being like, I don't feel nothing. I feel like I'm watching a movie. A lot of the emotions were at like 2 or 1 because they were things that I remember, like they came to mind and they pissed me off at the time. And I kind of thought, yeah, I remember that pissed me off. But really with the tapping, and I kind of told Don that too after a couple of weeks of writing down past things and trying to tap on those. I was like, I don't really feel too much of a difference with the old things. But then he was like, well, even just do it. And he had been telling me this, but when I said it, again, I don't know if the tapping is doing any good. He was like, well, are you using it day to day also? Because it's good for like day to day things in the moment. And that's where the tapping like really just was solving a lot of issues for me. Because there would be times where anger was a big, I've mentioned that anger was a big thing for me, and feeling stressed and always in a rush. And Chris would do something, annoy me. I kind of step back and like tap on it. And then like within a few seconds, I'd be like, okay, now I feel better. Because it used to be that even if I knew I shouldn't have said something, I shouldn't say something or shouldn't do something, and I would shut down, but I still feel that feeling just kind of welling up, just like right here, just like ready to explode at any moment. And so that would be the thing. Sometimes I can hold my tongue, but then like 10, 20 minutes later, he would say something, I would blow up anyways. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know how to get rid of that, but the tapping really helped. Like you could literally feel in real time the number going from 10 to 5 to 1 to 2. I didn't always do it to 0, but even just getting it down to 2 or 1 got it enough to where I could actually have a conversation. And that's a lot of what Don said was we need to have conversations, but it's not feeling a charge or super negative while having those conversations, because people can still catch that and then it puts them on edge. And that was so true. That was a huge thing I've gotten from this program, which is calm down and then have the conversation. The tapping helped significantly with that. So that was all going on the first 3 weeks. What else you have? You have me, yeah, doing my journal every day, ranking my day, meditating. Yeah, so you had to start off by getting up early, meditate, which I do not like to get up early. And
Well, now, speaking of the meditation and the journaling,
yeah.
I remember that oh, you wanted to meditate with music or something.
Yeah, I want to do a guided meditation. Yeah.
Right. And talk about the difference in because I know you've done some guided meditations before, but talk about the difference in doing it silently and just focusing on your breath and doing it, guided.
Yeah, with the guided, which is what Don kind of told me. He said the reason it's easier for you is because it's a distraction, it's a built-in distraction. I was like, he says that it is true. Because with the guided, it's got the music going, it's got the person talking. So it's really not hard to, I mean, you do have some wayward thoughts here and there, but it's really not hard to stay focused when it's someone talking to you. But he was like, I mean, you can do what you want. But I recommend you just take the guided meditation out, no music, and it's just you being quiet, focusing on your breath. And I was like, okay. And at first, because I think I heard this in one of your other interviews that I watched with someone. But I was thinking the only, I know Joe Dispenza and all that stuff, and he talks about uh astral projection and all that stuff. And I'm like, Don, none of this stuff is happening. Like, what the heck? I thought this meditation. I don't think I told him that part. I just told him like halfway through, I don't feel like the meditation is doing too much. So he was like, okay, you can stop it. But the reason I thought it wasn't doing anything is because I wasn't having the astral projection, leaving my body sensation. That's what I thought was supposed to be happening. But when he told me to stop it, I was like, because he told me just go a few days without it and see if you notice a difference. And so I went a few days without meditating, and I was like, well, I got to sleep in more. But that's when I realized it doesn't have to be about the astral projection leaving your body. I just liked getting up in the morning and just having quiet time, just to let my thoughts kind of do what they want to do. Because normally I'm trying to ignore my thoughts. I'm trying to shut them down. I'm trying to just like, okay, look, we got to go to school. At school, we got to get to work. We got to do this. We got to do that. Like I'm usually a go, 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 go kind of person. And so I told him, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna keep the meditation going for 30 minutes, because at that point you build up from 10 to 15 to 30 minutes. I was like, I'm gonna keep the meditation going because I actually like getting up early and just having that time just to be quiet, because I feel like it helps me go into the day less stressed. And so yeah, that was my thoughts with the meditation. At first I thought it was not working, but I still do it. I'm still doing it, actually waking up and having that. I'm doing 15, not 30, though.
Some is better than none. And getting back to the EFT, I know in the beginning I had asked you to write down, get a list of about 50 things from the past that you had issues with, and you were really struggling with that. But then talk about how that kind of opened up for you, because I think you ended up with 150. I mean, you were coming up with all
like I don't know, like 200 plus. Yeah, because I was overthinking it.
So how did that happen, that you went from struggling to thinking about things from the past to where you just kept coming up with stuff? What changed with that?
Well, and there was some things that I had been thinking of, and this is what me and you talked a lot about, which is my need to have a step-by-step guide for everything, always needing perfect control with everything, when I just need to learn to go with the flow a little bit more, be more free-flowing. And so that was the thing in the beginning. The first couple of weeks is I was like, am I choosing the right situations? And do I feel strongly enough about this? Is this the right person I should be like, I just had all these stipulations that just kept coming up. And so I was like, God, I can only get 5. Pretty much. And then he was like, stop. What'd you say? You said, you didn't say uptight, but basically you were like, stop being so anal. That's what you said. You're like, stop being so anal about everything. Everything's not gonna have a step-by-step guide. You just gotta, whatever's coming to mind, just put it on the paper. And I was like, Don, that don't make me feel right. But he was like, you just got to do it. You got to get over that. You can't have a step-by-step perfect guide for everything. So I was like, okay. And so then at that point, like whenever I would sit down to write, because he was telling me to do what, 10 things a day or something, or 2 to 3 things a day at least.
To tap on 2 or 3 things to clear. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you were telling me to write about 10 a day.
Yeah.
10 a day and tap on 2 to 3 of them. Yeah. So then I would sit down and do that. And then I would say, okay, well, he said whatever's coming to mind. So I was sitting there and think, just like over the years, I'm like, oh yeah, that pissed me off. Yeah, that pissed me off. And so then when he said, look, just write what's coming to mind, then I started coming up with a lot of them. And then I would tap on them, and then I'd be like, okay, yeah, I do feel, I did notice, no, because I said in the beginning, the tapping didn't really do anything. I lied, because there is this person who, I was very involved with. He was like Chris's best friend. We had access to his kid. Like we took his kids everywhere, all that stuff for like 5 or 6 years. And then it ended in a really, really bad way. And so I was always on low key high alert, because as far as I know, they still live around Birmingham area. Like, oh my God, is that him? Oh my God, is that him? Like that kind of stuff. But when I did the tapping on those previous situations, I got a lot from that situation. I actually found myself not as, it's not like every day I was going out high alert, but if I saw someone who looked like him or sounded like him or similar stature, like my blood pressure would rise and I feel my heart beating. I'm like, oh crap, is that him? Like, what am I gonna say if that's him? And I did notice that did go away, because he actually had me do this thing where you send the love, where you imagine someone in your mind and then you imagine like a beam of love or something like that going towards them. And doing that plus doing the tapping on the previous situations actually helped me to, I could look at a picture of them now and just be like, oh yeah, that's a person. Whereas before, wouldn't even want to look at a picture. I'm like, oh no, show me that person, get that picture out of my face. So the tapping actually did help a lot with that situation and the sending the love part too.
So how is your anger these days? I mean, if your anger was a problem at a 10 level, how would it be now on a regular basis?
Is at like a 6, I would say.
Okay.
5 or 6.
So still some work to do on it.
Yeah, still some work to do, but the issue before with the anger was that I could get angry and then I would just immediately just like fire off. And usually it was getting angry with sister, brother, Chris, like people closest to me. Cause like I told you, people at work would be like, you got an anger problem? No way, you don't have an anger problem. I'm like, yes, I do. But it was with people closest to me, I guess, because I got had more expectations of them. But now going through the program, I'm able to, I will still feel some irritation, but it doesn't feel as strong as it used to. Like it used to feel like instant, I'm at a 10, sometimes at a 15 with my anger. And now if I get angry, it's more like a 8 to start, but then I can catch it and then I can do the tapping, or I can say, okay, should I be, I can work through the level what is, asking the 4 questions and realizing, okay, Tia, it's the way you're thinking about this. And so now I've got a lot of speed bumps in place to help keep me from just exploding like I used to. And I've got more techniques now from done to help me actually get to a point where, okay, I'm not sizzling. I'm more like the water's just warm. And with the water being warm, instead of boiling hot, I can actually go and say, okay, this really annoyed me. Why did you do it this way? That now I can actually have a conversation without yelling, without being sarcastic. That was another big thing. Sometimes I wouldn't yell. I'd be super sarcastic. And have just like this tone, and the tone, yeah, it was not working. But yeah, so that's the biggest thing that changed, is that it's not like a firecracker going off. It's like, oh, I can catch it, bring it down, and then have a conversation now.
Yeah. And I know one of the other things, if you want to talk about it, is sexuality and,
Oh,
just
yeah. And that was something I wasn't even expecting Don to help me. That was the last thing I was wondering about. Yeah, because I came more from my anger and just for overall self-improvement. I don't even know how we got to that.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I think maybe initially we were talking about when you and Chris were living with your parents and how, uncomfortable you were with intimacy at your parents' home. And then
yeah, I can't remember how we got started, but we got started talking about my sex life. And I have to assume it was probably written in my journal at some point, because yeah, that was the benefit of the journal, was I would write things down and think it wasn't anything, and then Don would be like, oh wait, I noticed you said this, so maybe this is something we need to talk about. Because sex with me and my husband, yeah, it started out being really good when we first met. And well, I thought it was, but then when me and Don did what was that? The Matrix? Where you go back?
Matrix re-imprinting.
Okay, well, yeah, you had me like sit back and think all the way back to the beginning with my sexual encounters. And so, yeah, really it started when me and my cousin, when we were like 7, 6, 5, like super young, and we were doing sexual activities with each other. So growing up, I had some shame for that, because I was like, was that incest? Was that bad? And then when I met my husband, I was Christian, he wasn't. And we held off on having sex for a couple years, but we ended up, and I completely forgot this. Actually, I was talking to my husband, and he was saying that, yeah, the first time we had sex was after we had like a situation with a third person in the relationship. And after that situation was handled, you felt like I was with that person because they were allowed me to have intercourse and we weren't. So you said, hey, let's just go ahead and have sex so we can get this over with because I don't want you going to anybody else. So that was just a really bad situation for me to be having my first sexual encounter in. And then after that, I didn't even remember that. Still kind of don't remember that. But we were having sex on a daily basis, and I remember being fine with it, but I know at the time it was probably something I had to push down because I've always been someone who was like, I'm waiting until I'm married to have sex. I don't want to have sex outside of marriage. But we ended up doing that. And then we ended up doing it at my parents' house, who I knew were also very bothered by that because they actually told me at one point that they were like, yeah, y'all shouldn't be here unmarried, pretty much. And so just has been all these negative, shameful, guilt-filled situations with sex. And I didn't realize that that was impacting us now, current day, because I was like, well, we're in our own house. We ain't got no one here. We ain't got no one to be like, shh, be quiet and all that stuff. And I'm just finding out I'm feeling so negative towards having sex. Like just the thought of it feels like a chore. I get irritated at the thought of potentially having to have sex. Then I noticed my husband wasn't initiating it as much as he did anymore. He was watching more porn. And so now it's like, okay, we're in this situation where we're supposed to be able to have a sex life that's supposed to be blossoming, but it feels worse now than it was in the beginning. And so when I told Don all this, he was like, yeah, you've had all these negative associations with sex, and now it's kind of culminated in you like not being able to have a good sex life. And so one of the biggest things he told me though, because one of the things with sex too was that my husband would always try to start late at night, or I felt like there wasn't enough time. And he was like, well, sex doesn't always have to be orgasm at the end. It could just be y'all doing sexual things with each other, but it doesn't have to be penetration. It doesn't have to, there's no have to with sex. It's just get into some of the activities and just let it go where it goes and don't stress about the outcome. And I think when he said that at the time, he just thought that he was just talking, but to me, that unlocked so much because in my head, I thought if it doesn't end the orgasm, it wasn't good. He's not gonna like it. We have to do this. We have to like I have my rules, my control rules in my head. And I was like, it has to be this, it has to be this way. But then when Don said that, I was like, oh, for real? And so he was like, yeah, the point is y'all just, well, this is what I took it as. The point is we just don't want to become roommates. And so I was like, okay, well, and so I took those, what Don said, that advice to heart. And then when I went home, I did find that, well, he actually had me do the matrix re-imprinting on that stuff too, where you go back and like tell yourself in those situations that, hey, you don't have to be ashamed, you don't have to feel guilty. So that helped a lot. And then when he told me, take the control off, just let it go where it goes, that helped a lot. And so the sex issue was like, that was like a 15 out of 10 because I didn't think that would ever improve.
That was an unexpected bonus, wasn't it?
A big bonus, yeah. So that went from like a 15 out of 10 problem to like a 3.
Yeah,
So,
and one
yeah.
point, which this applies to everything, is that Atia had some experiences at a young age that are normal, for kids to do sex play and experiment as normal things, but based on the belief system that her parents had and that she took on, she felt a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. So when we get these beliefs at a young age that carry on, like, well, you're 28 years old now, right? So in other words, she was basically at the age of 28, a grown woman, a smart woman, a married woman. Even before she was married, she was basically taking the advice of a 7-8-year-old kid about himself. You know what I'm saying? So what we did, and that's why this work is so powerful and goes so quickly, is because your beliefs affect how you think. The thinking affects your feelings. The feelings affect your behavior, so it's a cycle of creation. So what we did with what I think Atia thought was a huge problem, and that she was going to have to go to a sex therapist and do all this. I mean, you tell me, but
Yeah,
I think you thought you were going to have to do all this long, drawn out therapy. And
I did think that.
yeah, and it just, I mean, yeah, and so you've gotten,
yeah. He wrapped it all up in. I think because we didn't even start that in the beginning. That was like towards the middle. So yeah,
halfway through we started on that, and talk about how you feel about your body and, just self-pleasure and sex in general.
Yeah, so that was another thing that kind of came up too was so he helped with me feeling so negative towards having sex with Chris. But then he was like, I also feel like in general, you're just not very comfortable with yourself in a sexual way, like in terms of like masturbation, that kind of thing. And so he was like, I want to challenge you to work on trying that in the next few weeks. So, cause yeah, we started touching on sex like the 5th or 6th week. And so the issue with Chris was resolved by like 2 or 3 sessions. But yeah, then you were like, okay, yeah, now I think you need to work on being just more comfortable with yourself. And so he was like, why? She said, just go watch some YouTube videos, educate yourself on that, and then just give it a try. Let me know how you feel. And so I went on YouTube and he told me what to Google, but I ended up in 2 different rabbit holes. And one rabbit hole was all this is liberating, this is self-empowering, all that good stuff. And I ended up down the rabbit hole of addiction, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, oh shoot, am I gonna get addicted to this stuff? And so I told Dunn that. I was like, Dunn, I'm kind of scared. I don't want to be addicted. But he was like, first off, have you ever been addicted to anything in your life? I was like, no. He was like, you do not have an addictive personality. He said, and second off, where did those thoughts kind of come from? And because we were also dealing with money too, as well. Because you had showed us a DVD about this lady having issues with charging for her advice. And I thought, yeah, I feel like it is bad to charge for my advice, especially if it's beneficial advice that will help people. And so at the same time, we were talking about sex. So initially, Don was like, yeah, you got an issue with being selfish. And I think that's affecting both your sex and your money. And so when I watched those videos, I was like, no, Don, with the money, it is a selfish issue. But with the masturbation parts, because I watched those videos about how to break your masturbation addiction and all that stuff. But then when I told him more about the videos and how it was more geared towards men and porn and masturbation, and he was like, yeah, if you're just now, when you get into all the weird tools and gizmos and gadgets, yeah, it can get to an addictive point. But if it's just you, your body, your hands, just self-care time, that should not be addicting. And it actually could help amplify. I don't know if you said this or one of my friends had told me, but she was like, it actually helped amplify your sex life with Chris, because a lot of guys like that their wives do that. And so when we had that conversation, he kind of helped me to see, okay, yeah, this can be a good thing. He actually found some videos, sent those to me. I watched those. I was like, okay, yeah, I can see the benefit of this. And then I realized that's a whole nother can of worms to get into with sex, because yeah, I just have such a limited view on sex, a very, very limited view. In part because of my upbringing, we did not talk about sex at all in my house. Like my mom, before I went to college, was like, do I need to talk to you about sex? I said no, and that was it. So I didn't get anything, which a lot of people don't. That's what I'm finding out. But yeah, so then I tried it a few times, and even still, I've done it a few more times. And I told Don, I was like, yeah, at first it felt kind of odd, but then I found that when you set because one of the videos he said, light some candles, cut on some music, just make it a nice, peaceful me time. And so I was like, okay, yeah, so this is like another way of having me time, pretty much. And so, yeah, I'm way more comfortable with that. Like for me to do masturbation, uh, I thought I would never do it because I never felt a need to do it, but to know that I feel more comfortable with myself now, in terms of sex in general and just with myself, period, to know that I have another aspect of myself that I understand a bit more, just goes more with the self-growth, a point that I didn't even think to consider with masturbation. So yeah, that was unexpected bonus.
Yeah. Well, and
With it.
in this program, it just goes, I don't have any, I've got certain tools and techniques that I know work. And before any session, I always spend some time, thinking about what we're doing and make myself some notes. And, all throughout the course of, like I told IT to begin with, even before we started the program, I'm thinking of you every day and issues that, you're working on and resources that might be useful. So it's like we have a session once a week, but then I'm sending you stuff all the time. We communicate. So it's like a 12-week commitment on both ends, and So even though I make my notes about what we might do in a session, what I do in every session is I just ask God to guide me to do what's appropriate for our highest and best good, without any attachment to results. And I just let it go where it goes. I mean, sometimes it's kind of funny. I'll have all these notes about what we might do, but then it just goes somewhere totally different. So in these sessions, I mean, this work really is just an extension of how I live my life. And even though, I say spirit or God, Don's not doing the work. Don is the vehicle. And I think you could feel that when we talk, I mean, it's like, it's just, it's coming from
Yeah.
somewhere else. And so, yeah, it's beautiful. And the sex thing, when we first started, we never even talked about that. And it was
Yeah.
something, that totally surprised both of us, but then that's where we need it to go. And
Definitely.
one thing I'll say about ITEA, and I've told her this several times, I've done this program with over 100 people, lots of different age groups, professions, variety of people. But I would say, and I tell everybody, you're going to get benefit to the extent that you invest. And I would say ITEA, I would put her in the top 5 or 6 people that have ever done this program as far as the investment that she made. So, I appreciate when people, thank me for what they got, but basically it's you. I gave you the guidance, the direction, the accountability, but any results you got is 100% from what you did. Really,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Of course, I told my family about this, and I really love when my mom did the program. And she was, of course, well, my mom, she's very fast to spend money on self-help programs, but that's the thing is she likes to spend. She was like, oh, maybe I need to do that program. Maybe I need to sign up for that. But I told her, don't even sign up, because the thing is she will sign up, but she doesn't want to do the work
Well,
with
but
it.
I'll tell you this, I've only fired maybe 2 or 3 people over the years, but for
Mhm.
me, if somebody's not doing the work, I'll give them notice. I'll give them a week or 2 to get on it. But if they're, I fire them.
Yeah, because it
And
does
it's
take
not
a
called,
lot. And you told me
because,
that in the
right,
beginning.
because for me, it's not about the money.
Yeah.
Not about the money. If somebody, I've had people that wanted to pay me money, but they didn't want to do the work. And I said,
Mhm.
you're wasting
There's
your
a lot of
money.
work. Like you said, it's like a 2-3 hour day commitment. It really is like that. Towards the end, I got more in the groove, so honestly, it started to not even feel like work anymore. But in the beginning, when you have the 5 books to go through and the books have different activities for you to do, it does feel more homeworky, like, because there's so many activities to do, journals to do within the books, in addition to what he has you doing. But then once you finish the books, and plus the last few books you gave me didn't really have exercises. It was just reading for knowledge sake. And then I discovered audiobooks, so then I could like listen all day. Um, but yeah, that was kind of the joy. And I wasn't expecting this either, but I think I told you this, Don, but when I was going to work, like if you were to go in my room, I had like, be grateful for your job. Remember, you can pay for your, like I was trying to motivate myself every day to not dread going to work. Cause I just dreaded going to work, dreaded waking up to get up early, all that stuff. But then like partway through the program, like I said, about 3 or 4 weeks in, I was like, I'm actually excited for tomorrow. I'm actually excited to get up now. And it's just because I was learning so much, and even still. So yeah, even still, I'm learning so much every day. And it's just like, now I'm excited because you never know what you're going to learn, what revelation you're going to get, because Don would say things to me and I'd be like, I've heard that statement before. But when you got all this work done and all this new knowledge, now the same things you kind of heard throughout the years have way more meaning. And it's just like an epiphany. Like I've just getting epiphany after epiphany
Well, and
throughout.
it's
It
all
more
about having your experience. I mean, the reason that most of these self-help programs and seminars do not work is just probably what your mother does. They go to the program, they listen to stuff, but then they don't do anything, and
mm-hmm,
nobody's holding them accountable. I
mm-hmm,
think somebody could find out about tapping and journaling and read. People could somehow find out about all these tools,
I
But if
don't
you
know
don't,
how, but
yeah, if you don't know how to use them and nobody's holding you. Now, some of the things like, uh, it's not even going to be easy for people to find out about.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But,
I don't know
but if
how.
they, yeah, but I'm saying if they do find out about them, then what do you do?
Right.
I mean, that's like, you want to become a good basketball player. So you read books about basketball, you go to basketball games, you watch videos, but you never played a game and you don't have anybody.
A coach.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
coaching in any area of life is beneficial for people, because if you get the right coach in any area, they're going to take you much further, much
Yeah.
faster than you could
Yeah.
ever go on your own. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Because
I
that's
mean,
the thing is,
yeah,
I was on this path already, but yeah, Don just came in and 1000 x'd it, like sped it up, amplified it exponentially. Like I still look back and I'm just like, what the heck did I experience? This is crazy.
yeah, I know it's amazing. At 12 weeks, it's really amazing what
Mhm.
happens. So I know you've got a time. I mean, this hour has gone by like
Yeah.
that. So any final words before we finish?
I would just like to say great appreciation for Don's divine, what do you call them? Divine appointments.
Divine appointments.
Yes.
Divine appointments.
And I'm glad that I chose to do it because, yeah, Don has told me this so many times that he will meet people, tell them about his program, but then they won't follow through. So I'm very glad, one, that I met Don, that he offered me the opportunity, and two, that I took the opportunity. Because, yeah, I'm just finding out. The other thing, too, is I wanted to become more sure of myself because I just found myself just doubting myself a lot, having to feel the need to go to other people for my answers, other people for advice. And I was like, I don't want to have to do that. I want to just know what I want to do, be able to trust that I'm in general going the right direction, and not have to depend on other people outside of me for advice. And so I've definitely gained that. Like I said, the sex life thing was a huge bonus. Um, Me and my husband still have some things, like I got decisions to make as far as that goes, but like our communication is way better. Our sex life is way better. I've had some conversations with him that I've tried to have so many times, but they come across different when I can calm down first and think about it first versus coming at him annoyed or irritated. My sister has noticed changes. Like she's like, when we go on vacation, you used to be rushing me all the time and you used to stress me out. And now I'm just like, do you not care? Like, are you high? Like, what's going on? And I'm just like, look, after going through this program, I just realized, just kind of sometimes you just got to coast through, which I would have never said that. Just coast through because I also always had to have a plan. I always had to know exactly what's coming. And I still got the big stuff. Like, if I feel that something isn't right, I'll speak up. Or when it comes to like catching flights or something big like meeting appointments, I'll keep those stringent. But yeah, just every day for the most part, I'm trying to just, hey, everything might not go to plan, and if it doesn't, that's fine. What can we get from this? What can we get to that from that? Because this program just shows you there's always something that you can get from everyone and everything. Like it's always something to be learned, always a lesson to be taught. But you got to be open to catching it. But yeah, like I've continued to meet people and they come up to me in the parking deck sometimes or like in the store and they'll just have like whole conversations with me. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? But it's stuff relevant for a time. And I feel like it's just because I'm more open now. Like I'm not in a rush as much as I used to be. And I know Don had us do this little toxic success thing, and I still scored about the same the beginning and the end. But I told him, my score looks the same because overall it was just that I feel rushed
Right.
or that I don't have enough time in the day. And I told him, my score is the same, which he said it was kind of on the lower end already to begin with. But I said I before they felt insurmountable. Like I felt like there was no way I would ever feel like there was more time today. There's no way I would ever fix how I feel. Like this is just it. I just got to deal with it for the rest of my life. That's how I felt at first. And so I said, now, even though the score looks the same on paper, and Don's like, clearly we still got some work to do. But I'm like, no, Don, but now I feel like with what you've given me, I'm starting to knock these down. Like I find myself more often than not feeling rushed, not looking down and seeing, crap, it's already 11 o'clock and I got to get up at 6 a.m. Like I'm catching myself now earlier in the day, I'm putting more boundaries, tell people not to call me after 9 o'clock so I can be in bed by 10:30. So I'm making a lot of adjustments and changes, but I didn't know how to do that before when done. And now things are just, at the same time, I've given up control, but I feel like I'm in more control now that I've given up control.
Yeah, no, that's true because what,
Yeah.
and I think what's true is that your consciousness has gone up. You're a lot more aware of what's going on, and you have the tools to deal with problems that you didn't have before.
Yeah, because
So
the problems will come up.
yeah,
Yeah.
consciousness about what's going on is one thing, and then having the tools to deal with it is another thing. So,
Yeah. All right. But yeah, I would 1 trillion% recommend this program to anyone. Just be prepared. Yeah. You have to do the work. You have to put the time in, let everybody around you. Well, don't let everybody around you know, because that's what I found out from Don too. Was I said, Don, some of the people I told, they got dang bit my head off. I told them I was doing life coaching, which that opened up a whole nother door of maybe you gotta let some people go. And that everyone who is not necessarily toxic doesn't mean they should be taking up time and space in your life just because they're good or okay, because you could be missing out on a more meaningful relationship holding on to those people who are not even that they have to support you necessarily doing the life coaching, but to attack you until you're done for doing it is a whole nother issue. And so there was a few people like that. And now I've realized going through the course is like, yeah, I don't really have time for that anymore. Like I realize there's so much more I could be doing now that I've gone through this program. And it's just like, I'd rather be by myself than deal with those people. And before I would have never said that.
yeah.
But going through this program, I realize that now because I need to be able to, and I've got people in my life who do support. And it's like, I deserve those kind of people. I don't want to be surrounding myself for hours and hours with the people who tell me I'm dumb and wasting money. Especially when I tell them I can see in the beginning everyone was kind of skeptical, but now that I'm halfway through, 75% of the way through, and you're still telling me it's dumb, it's like, okay, I got to really look at this because I don't think it's going to work. So, yeah, a lot has changed. A lot has changed. There's some hard decisions to make, but I feel more at peace for them. So,
yeah, well, thank you very much. And, hopefully some people that, listen to this might motivate them to do something. But like you say, my experience is that at least 95% of the people that find out about this don't do anything because they have to work. People don't want to work. They want to take a pill or they want somebody to do something for them. And I knew that when I got into this, that it would be a small percentage of people that would engage with me. But that's fine because the people that do are awesome people.
yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, let me stop the recording here.